Welcome to the Rabbi Shmuel Show. I'm Rabbi Shmuel Hertzfeld, and my guest today is Asher Epstein, the Managing Director of the Dingman School for Entrepreneurship at the University of Maryland. Asher, thank you for joining us on the Rabbi Shmuel Show.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Now, Asher, where would you say is the epicenter of entrepreneurship in the world right now?
Well, there's a lot of places where entrepreneurship's hot. I mean, obviously Silicon Valley's historically been a great epicenter, and China and India are burgeoning markets. But Israel is also, has been there and needs to be evaluated as one of the top places. Tel Aviv is typically ranked in the top 10 as entrepreneurship capitals around the world.
Tel Aviv is the top 10, but it's not the top 10 in population.
No. Per capita, Israel's, I think, the number one in the world for startups.
Number one in the world is Israel for startups.
Correct.
How can we explain that?
Well, there's a great book called Startup Nation written by Saul Singer and Dan Senor that just came out this past fall. It really has a number of interesting anecdotes and facts about why Israel is such a competitive startup market. And a lot of it dates back to the military. The military provides a tremendous training ground. They teach really flat hierarchy, which is essential for entrepreneurship. And, good ideas come from anywhere.
What's flat hierarchy? Go into that a little bit.
Not so much structure. I mean, in the U.S., there's very structured and rigid hierarchies within organizations, and often good ideas from the worker bees don't get heard. In Israel, the anecdote in Startup Nation is that everyone's got a nickname, whether it's BB or Doodoo or all the way up to the top, that it makes the senior management much more approachable, and therefore those on the front line with good, compelling ideas have an opportunity to be heard quite quickly and quite rapidly, which is a source of innovation within the Israeli economy.
I'd like to go with that idea for a moment, Asher, because let's think about this. Do you think there's any possibility that structure and hierarchy or lack of hierarchy can be traced back to the Talmud? Yes, I said the Talmud. Do you think startup entrepreneurship can be, and the success of it in Israel can be traced back to the Talmud? In the Talmud, we encourage debate, we encourage questioning. Even the simple student can ask a hard question to the dean of the academy. Isn't this what's needed for a successful entrepreneurship?
I think that aspect of entrepreneurship can be traced back to the Talmud. I mean,
Beautiful. Let's stop that right there. I want to say that again. That aspect of entrepreneurship can be traced back to the Talmud, right? And this is not anybody. This is the Dingman Managing Director of the Dingman School at the University of Maryland for Entrepreneurship. Dingman's, please, you do not contradict the host on the Rabbi Shmuel Show. The Dingman Center for Entrepreneurship states that some aspects of entrepreneurship can be traced back to the Talmud. What other aspect do you think there is?
Well, just to go back on your initial comment, the idea that no assumption is eternal is a critical skill for successful entrepreneurs. Markets change, customer preferences change, macroeconomic factors change. So those types of assumptions that you might have originally when developing a business model or a business plan need to be constantly reevaluated. And that questioning and that argumentative nature that's so prevalent in the Talmudic times is a critical skill set, I believe.
Well, I don't think it's only prevalent in the Talmudic times. It's also prevalent in modern times, in the Jewish culture.
Sure, but it got its core
from the Talmud.
Correct.
Because we love arguments. We don't shy away from an argument. We encourage it.
Correct.
We believe it fosters growth, intellectual and spiritual growth.
You'll never find an Israeli yes man. I mean, that concept doesn't exist in Israel, where people just agree with the boss because he or she is the boss. That doesn't exist in Israel.
And you work with Israeli startups.
Right. I mean, in Israel, what the challenge is the flip side, whether they'll say that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I mean, everything's on the table. And, clearly there's a middle ground, but it's very important to be able to challenge the status quo, and that's what entrepreneurship is really all about.
Do you think the Dingman Center would consider starting a program in Israel?
We have a program in Israel, Shmuel. We're doing a program on technology commercialization.
In Israel?
In Israel.
University of Maryland in Israel?
The University of Maryland in Israel. We've partnered with the Pt.1, the number one university in Israel.
I thought that was the Hebrew University, which is the number one.
#1 for startups for
Oh,
technology.
Okay.
So the Pt.1 is a tremendous university, and we've partnered with the university to take MBA students from America, partner them with MBA students from Israel, and work to commercialize technology from the Pt.1.
Asher, can we move beyond a little bit about startups for a moment? Would that be okay with you?
Sure.
The skill sets that you seek and try to foster in entrepreneurs in your business and in your university, what skill sets do you think would best be translated or transferred to spiritual leadership? For example, I'm here in the largest and the oldest Orthodox synagogue in the nation's capital. What skills that you teach do you think could help us in our quest to reach more Jews in the greater Washington area?
Well, there's personal skill sets that we talk about a lot for entrepreneurs, which I think are essential for rabbis as well.
What are those?
The first is comfort with uncertainty. You never know what tomorrow will bring, and as a rabbi with a number of congregants looking to you for leadership, you really have to be flexible and aware that your congregation is going through change all the time. So you have to be comfortable with that. The second thing we talk about a lot is discipline. You have to be focused and concentrate on your efforts, and you want to be making sure that you're making good decisions and you're not throwing good money after bad. And as a rabbi, particularly of an Orthodox synagogue, you have to have discipline to come to morning minyan and Mincha Ma'ariv and make sure that the hashgacha is all right and everything else.
And you'll join us at those minyanim as well.
I've been, sure.
Right, of course. Asher is a rock, a core at our minyan. Yes.
I wouldn't go that far, but I definitely have been to the morning minyan and the evening minyan. The final thing we talk about a lot is integrity. As an entrepreneur, you really don't have credibility from your venture because it doesn't exist. So the credibility and the integrity comes from the individual. And you have to convince your investors and your employees and your customers that you are going to do what you say you do. And I can't think of too many traits more valued for a rabbi than to have integrity, because the entire community really depends upon that.
Let's just repeat those 3 traits, because I think they're so beautiful. The first was
comfort with uncertainty.
Comfort with uncertainty, which some rabbis are not comfortable with, but I think that's very important. Second is
discipline.
Extremely important. And the third is integrity. Extremely important. I think that those, if I couldn't have said it better myself, if you asked me what are the 3 most essential qualities that you need in spiritual leadership to start a synagogue, I would agree with that. I really think that's beautiful, Ash. Did you come up with that?
It's been refined over time.
That's a beautiful thing. But what about for a community itself? You might have been talking about a rabbi, right? What about the community, the synagogue itself?
Skills.
The synagogue itself, should the synagogue be comfortable with uncertainty, or just the rabbi?
Well, I'm of the school of thought that the only constant in life is change. So being comfortable with change is a critical differentiator, no matter where you are, because change happens, and you need to adjust to it and make sure that you can move on. And
a congregation needs discipline, and the congregation needs integrity. So there is this almost this 2 competing qualities: the ability to be comfortable with uncertainty and discipline. Some might see those as a tension.
Well, discipline doesn't necessarily refer to a rigidity or structure. It just means that you can get things done, and you can hold yourself accountable to deliverables, and you can produce the activities that you say you're going to produce, and you're reliable, and that's completely in sync with uncertainty.
All right, we're going to be back with Asher. We're going to ask you some very hard questions about specific advice for people who want to start up their business, and maybe we're going to ask you about whether or not people should go into Judaica business as well. We'll be back in just a moment with Asher Epstein, of the Managing Director of the Digman Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Maryland. Don't go away.